Hello and welcome. As parents, all we want is to give our children the absolute best. But in our modern world, sometimes that love and care can lead to some really unexpected challenges. And one of the biggest ones we're facing today is childhood obesity. So today, we're going to dive deep into this growing issue in Vietnam. This isn't about blame, not at all. It's about understanding so we can love and support our kids in the healthiest way possible.
So let's just look at the numbers for a second, because they tell a pretty stark story. Back in 2010, about 8.5% of kids in Vietnam were considered overweight or obese. Fast forward just one decade to 2020, and that number skyrockets to 19%. Yeah, you heard that right. It more than doubled. We're now talking about nearly 1 in every 5 children. This isn't just a gradual trend, it's a massive, rapid shift.
And it turns out this isn't just happening in a vacuum. The National Institute of Nutrition points out that Vietnam actually has one of the highest growth rates for childhood obesity in all of Southeast Asia. That really puts it into perspective, doesn't it? It shows just how fast this is becoming a major public health conversation for families all across the country.
So, how are we going to break all this down? Well, first, we'll define what we're even talking about. Then we'll dig into the root causes. After that, we'll look at the very real consequences, but then we'll pivot to the positive stuff, actionable steps for families. And we'll wrap it all up by busting some common myths that can really hold us back. All right, let's jump right into our first section, a growing problem. Because to really get a handle on this, we need to be super clear about the words we're using. You hear overweight and obese thrown around a lot, sometimes together, but they actually mean two different things. Here's an easy way to think about it. Being overweight is like a yellow light. It's a warning sign. It means a child's weight is higher than what's considered healthy for their height. Obesity, though, that's the red light. That's a medical condition where the amount of excess body fat is high enough that it's starting to cause actual harm to their health. And that brings us back to that big number, 19%. And I really want to stress, this isn't just some abstract statistic. It represents millions of children whose health and happiness, both right now and for their future, are genuinely at risk. It's a reality that we're seeing every day in our schools, our neighborhoods, and for many of us, right in our own homes. Which leads us straight into section 2, and the question that's on every parent's mind, why? Why is this happening on such a large scale? Well, the truth is there's no single simple answer. It's more like a perfect storm of different factors all coming together. Now, this chart really breaks it down for us. It's easy to think it's all about genetics, and yeah, that plays a part, about 15%. But look at this. A whopping 70% comes down to improper nutrition. Add in another 15% for psychological and social factors, and you see that our lifestyle choices are overwhelmingly the main driver here. And at its very core, the science is actually pretty simple. It's all about an unbalanced scale. On one side, you've got energy in. That's all the calories our kids get from food and drinks. On the other side, you have energy out, the calories they burn just by living, growing, and playing. For so many kids today, the energy inside is just way, way heavier. So what's tipping that scale? Well, it's the world we live in. We've got fast food and sugary drinks available everywhere, 24/7. At the same time, life has gotten a lot more sedentary. Screen time on phones and tablets has replaced a lot of that unstructured running around outside time. And we can't forget the mental side. Stress and even boredom can lead kids to eat for comfort, and that creates a really tough cycle to break. Okay, this brings us to a really serious part of the conversation, the consequences. And I want to be very clear. This goes so far beyond a child just being a little bit chubby. We are talking about major long-term effects on their entire life. The problem really attacks on two fronts. On one side, you have all the physical health risks, the diseases that you can measure and see. But just as damaging, and sometimes even more so, is the invisible psychological harm that can really wound a child's spirit. When we look at the physical side, it's pretty scary. We're seeing conditions that we used to think only affected middle-aged adults now showing up in kids. Things like high blood pressure, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. The extra weight also puts incredible strain on their bodies, leading to fatty liver disease, joint problems, and it can even increase the risk of early puberty and some cancers down the road. And then there's the emotional pain, which is immediate and can be devastating. Children can develop really low self-esteem, feeling ashamed or unhappy with their bodies. This can easily spiral into depression and anxiety. And often it's made so much worse by teasing and bullying from their peers, which can cause a child to just completely shut down, withdraw, and feel totally alone. These are emotional scars that can last a lifetime. Okay, we've laid out the problem and the risks, which can feel really heavy. So now I want to completely shift gears and talk about the solution. And the great news is there is absolutely a positive path forward. This isn't about punishment or super strict diets. It's about building healthy, happy habits together as a family. Now, this might be the single most important idea to grasp. For a child who is still growing, the goal is not weight loss. Let me say that again. The goal is not to make them lose weight. It's to slow down the rate at which they're gaining weight. This gives their bodies time to grow taller and let their height catch up. But even more importantly, it helps them build a healthy relationship with food and activity that will stick with them for life. So how do we actually do this? Well, it's not some crazy complicated plan. The whole approach really rests on two simple, powerful pillars. Number one, we adjust their nutrition. And number two, we increase their physical activity. That's it. That's the framework. Let's start with nutrition, and I like to focus on the positive first. What can we add more of to their diet? We want to lean into things like whole grains. Think brown rice and corn. We want lean proteins like skinless chicken, fish, and beans. We want tons of green vegetables and fruits that are on the less sweet side, like grapefruit, dragon fruit, and apples. Now for the other side of the coin, foods we want to limit. And notice that word limit, not eliminate. We're talking about things like fried foods, sugary sweets, and fast food. They're packed with calories but offer very little nutrition. The goal isn't to ban them forever. That's not realistic. It's to shift them from being an everyday thing to an occasional, sometimes treat. All right, we're in the home stretch. For our last section, let's do a little rapid fire myth busting. There are a lot of old beliefs out there that sound like they make sense, but they can actually do more harm than good. Okay, first up, and this is a big one, to help a child manage their weight, is it a good idea to have them skip breakfast to cut calories? That is a big fat no. In fact, it completely backfires. Skipping breakfast makes a child's blood sugar crash. They feel tired, they can't focus in school, and what happens? They become ravenous later in the day, which almost always leads to them overeating at lunch and dinner to make up for it. All right, myth number 2, another common fear for parents. Since milk has fat and calories, should an overweight child just avoid it altogether? Nope, this is another myth we need to bust. Milk has calcium and protein that are absolutely crucial for growing bones and helping kids reach their full height potential. The solution isn't to get rid of milk, it's just to make a smarter choice, like switching to unsweetened or low-fat versions. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the entire philosophy. Our job is to help our children develop good eating and activity habits. The focus should always be on health, energy, and well-being, not on a number on a scale or achieving a certain body shape. So, I'll just leave you with this final thought to ponder. Does our children's future health begin with the habits we help them build today? I think the answer is pretty clear. We're laying that foundation right now, one healthy meal, one fun bike ride, one supportive conversation at a time. Thanks so much for joining me.